I had, throughout my childhood, heard a lot about Tal Jones and the family oil in the 1920s, but the legal aspect of all the legal challenges that really I found amazing, of going to the U.S. Supreme Court in the 1930s and being just basically, the battles went from the local United States district courts, the trial court, to the U.S. Court of Appeals, to the 10th Circuit, and on to the Supreme Court. Those were major battles for the family, and there were those that represented him were also ones that were taking large chunks of mineral rights from him as well. So it was like, you don't trust your attorney that was representing you. I found that very, very interesting and very troubling. Other areas that there were the wildcatters that would come and drill on your land and steal oil by drilling sideways. Those a lot of unscrupulous dealings, during that period, and it still goes on today. We just won a class action lawsuit in the U.S. Supreme Court that the Supreme Court affirmed the trial court's decision against Sunoco Oil for $150 million for the class action lawsuit. So the battle still continues. That's what's so amazing 100 years later. That's a hard one because very few blacks were attorneys, particularly in Oklahoma. You almost had to trust them. From what I have discovered, that his attorney took at least 10 acres of mineral rights. And that's a large sum when it comes to oil. And he got away with it by telling my great-great-grandfather Tal, yes, you don't have to record it, I'll do it. And when he recorded it, he recorded some of the mineral rights to his name. So, and what do? You sue your attorney, but that's a whole nother issue in itself. It was it's just very unbelievable of the issues that came about with the oil. The city of Wewoka, where the oil fields were, they did an eminent domain on the land. So, and that's another issue in itself. So it's been really a battle throughout the years, not only in terms of the battles between family members of each generation, that it becomes a war within the family over mineral rights. The most easiest way to provoke a white mob is to say a black man raped or assaulted a white woman. and it will draw a mass crowd of people, vigilante groups, that they want to take the law in their own hands. I mean, gotta remember, remember the word picnic? You know what it means? Pick a nigga. You know, people would get dressed up and have a picnic for a lynching. So, you know, it's unbelievable that the Tulsa Race Riot, a lot of jealousy, a lot of envy of the Black prosperity in Tulsa. And it was all within their community at that time. Black Wall Street, our Greenwood area of Tulsa, was a very thriving business, from Black hotels. I think it was two grocers or markets. There were dry cleaners or laundries. I mean, it just went on, and a lot of jealousy. And just think, Blacks lost everything. The insurance companies wouldn't pay the claims. The banks that had their money in, they were looted. All your personal belongings that you had at home were looted, and to cover it up, they set everything on fire. So that's the way it was. And what were you going to do? Because you didn't have any support from the courts or the government. And right now, you know, I think it's only 3 individuals left from that period. I would probably say, yeah, reparations due, but will that happen? I don't know. Of course, that was to cover up. Right now, they're doing excavations in various cemeteries because they're supposed to be mass graves. I don't know where that is right at the moment, but I would probably say, I think the cover-up is the insurance companies not paying the losses. The banks that where Blacks had money in, they probably lost it there. I know that the Black banks lost everything. So that, you know, it was a situation that I always heard my grandparents talk about. My mom, she spoke on it, but then Tulsa recovered and became Greenwood all over again. It was a renaissance. And then it was all destroyed again with the federal interstate system, putting the highway right through Black Wall Street in Greenwood. So, and that happened all over the country. It even happened here in Los Angeles with Sugar Hill. The 10 freeway, Santa Monica Freeway, that's Sugar Hill. That was a Black neighborhood. It went right through it. I started out to work on my PhD at Howard University, and I went there just to study political science. But however, I started to focus myself in Black politics, and that's where it started to unfold. Um, and I started to put together, I said, my God, I come from a very rich um, family and history um, from both sides. Um, not only with Tal Jones, but that's on my mom's father's side, but my mom's mother's side of the family as well. They were in the Trail of Tears in the Indian Removal Act from Mississippi to northeastern Oklahoma in the 1830s. And the history of my great-great-grandfather writing Swing Low, Sweet Charity, and that was Wallace Willis. So it all came together when I just said, wow, I need to do something with this. And at first I started out with a screenplay. And I said, I have too many characters for a screenplay. This needs to be a miniseries and a book. So I kind of switched gears. But I did win over 26 film festivals on the screenplay. And it has done very well. And I'm really excited. Developing the book. The book is very, very interesting. It's historical, but it also has a lot of family drama in it. So family, I got to know a lot of the family because a lot of them in the last 2 generations moved to Los Angeles and to Oakland. They left Oklahoma. And I got to know a lot of the family. A lot of the family settled in the San Joaquin Valley, which at Bakersfield or Tulare, Visalia, they were farmers. So that's what they knew. And so, but I was told all the stories, and it was amazing that when I worked on the genealogy, just reflecting back on the stories that I heard from the elders in the family, it really has helped me. And I took my research skills from my doctoral studies to move in the direction of genealogy. With the House of Representatives, I worked on and wrote major portions of a legislative piece called the Second Chance Act. The Second Chance Act assists state and federal governments and with individuals being released from incarceration, which provides assistance for them to matriculate back into the community. That piece of legislation was needed, and it's still needed, because annually there's more than 750,000 people released from state and federal prisons across the country, which is equivalent to the size of the city of Baltimore or Boston. And so that tells you that's a lot of people being released back into the community, with some places $100 and some places not. And what do? And the purpose of the Second Chance Act was to reduce recidivism. And I worked on it. It was a long period of legislation, but it was very rewarding to get it passed. Um, I I helped the congressman that I worked for to get 92 co-sponsors that were bipartisan, as well as 247 votes for it passing in the House of Representatives, and worked together with Senator Kennedy and then Senator Joseph Biden for the passing of the Second Chance Act. And President George Bush signed it into law in 2008. That was one of my highlights of being in the House of Representatives. And the other highlight was developing and introducing Juneteenth as a holiday. And when I worked on it back in 2008 and 7, people thought it was a big joke. That'll never happen. And so eventually wound up happening. And I'm so glad there. But other legislative I worked on a lot of social justice issues related to poor people and people who were disenfranchised, or things like the reauthorization of the Ryan White Act in terms of medication and public health assistance for HIV, AIDS patients, or just people who have HIV or that are positive. So that was very rewarding as well. And that's still in effect in both the Second Chance Act as well. Let's say I rely heavily on census records and verify things with secondary sources, but that's a primary. You would be surprised of how far you can go with census. The spelling of things maybe might be incorrect, or in terms of using nicknames or different. But overall, my experience is from about 1870 onward, they seem to be pretty good. Teaching it as American history rather than Black history, because it's American history, not focusing on it as Black history. Because when you focus it as Black history, then that's where the divisiveness comes. Well, I mean, it's quite obviously that a lot of, I would put it this way. There's a lot of folks that are ashamed of the past, and or they don't want the past to be told because they're the beneficiaries of slavery and Jim Crow or Reconstruction. They benefited, and they don't want to deal with that. Their history in terms of, well, to me, Juneteenth says a lot. That's a year later after the emancipation. They got an extra year in Texas, but to me, Juneteenth means it has it's very rewarding, particularly for me, that this was something that I worked on in my earlier days. That's one. Two, my folks are from Texas, so they have always talked about Juneteenth. So that was something that I was always proud of. And my history, my family history, I've always been instilled to be proud of the history, proud of the passage, the Middle Passage to America. Slavery as something that was horrible, but it is a focus. It is something that I'm proud of, that my family was able to survive it. The same as Jim Crow. My family was able to survive. And today, when I look at our life today, I mean, I won't say it's a cakewalk today, but just think what they went through. And that's so important to me. I'm a little older. Well, I spent time in Oklahoma in the 60s, and I can remember when we would go downtown, we couldn't try on clothes. You couldn't try on your shoes. I remember when we would go to Cressy's or Woolworth, that we would want to eat we couldn't eat at the counter. We would have to get our food to go. I remember that. I remember the black swimming pool. I mean, of course, when I was experiencing that, I didn't know any difference. I just thought that was the way it was, and that's that. So I look back on that. That was a wonderful experience. I used to wonder when the family traveled from Los Angeles to Oklahoma to visit relatives, and why we didn't stop at the Grand Canyon, or why we didn't stop at the Painted Desert when they just drove a straight 18-hour, and because you couldn't stop but to get gas. And why my mother fried chicken and had a loaf of bread in the car and a cooler. All of those things. You look back on that and you say, wow. First of all, just get as much information, or try to get as much information from your parents, or whatever you have. The easiest, I don't want to advertise for them, but one of the easiest means is ancestry.com. It really makes things a lot simpler for an individual, particularly with the census records. But there are a lot of other online sites as well. It's just they're not as user friendly in that area. But I would recommend, like particularly in the state of California, to start collecting those documents, because hopefully reparation will come. I would like to also thank the audience for taking the time to hear my story and my family's plight. I will be speaking at the LBJ Presidential Library on the Tal Jones Black Oil Legacy in the fall.